There's something really scary about presenting your PhD research to your peers or just an audience in general. And so in this video, I'm going to tell you what they're really thinking and how you can solve those problems so you never lose an audience and they always understand what you have to say. Throughout your PhD, you are expected to present what you have found to the world. And sometimes it can be just in front of like 5 or 6 people, and other times it can be up to, 200 people in a large conference. And it is always, no matter what the size of the audience, it is always really quite daunting. Now, I'm really fortunate that I quite like public speaking, and I used to be a science communicator for different publications, as well as my own startup, Verbalize Science. So, it's a very kind of nice, relaxing topic for me, but I know that for a lot of other people, the thought of just getting out in front of people is absolutely terrifying. And I think a big part of that is trying to kind of double guess what they're thinking about you, that kind of idea of judgment and, they think I'm stupid or like I'm going to misspeak. And look, to put that to bed, that is just not true. Everyone's more concerned about themselves than anyone else. So in this video, we're going to go through what people could potentially be thinking about your research if you present it in an awkward way. And look, I'll be honest with you, I have seen all of these mistakes countless times with professors. I think professors are some of the worst offenders when it comes to communicating science because they just use a low effort approach, the majority of them, and they just bung random papers together and present them in a rapid succession PowerPoint presentation. So I'll be going through what people are thinking, and I'll be telling you how you can fix those issues so that people follow you through your entire presentation, whether or not it's 10 minutes or 45 minutes. The first and the biggest issue that I see every time when people are up presenting their science is I sit there and I'm like, I am completely lost now. And I don't think I'm alone. I think that a lot of people, when they're presenting their science, they kind of assume a very high base level of knowledge about their field from the audience. And so just starting at the bare basics, like, this is my broad field, this is what we're doing. And if you're presenting in your school or college, quite often people know what that supervisor is doing. So you don't need to go back, to really basic stuff because they have heard a similar presentation many, many times. But the moment you step outside of your school or your department, you really have to just go in easy. Like, the level you should be aiming for, even with a sort of clever scientific audience, is about the age of a 14-year-old. Like, a clever 14-year-old is perfect because we don't like, as humans, to put too much effort into understanding stuff. It's all about reward and risk, and the reward has to be very high for you to really focus and try to unpick stuff. Whereas if you're just presenting, high level things and you make it clear and accessible, people are willing to follow you on that journey. And once you have lost them, because the number of phones that go on in the audience or the number of people that are distracted by other stuff in the room, in their book or on their laptop, goes up really, really fast. So I always use that as a gauge as to whether or not I've lost people, and then I just backtrack and I say, a few of you are on your phones, or I've lost this group or whatever. I'm just going to reel it back a moment and just explain what I meant by blah, blah, blah. And that's really good. So yeah, look, people are looking and saying, I'm completely lost. And that's because you're going far too fast, far too quickly. And don't just dive in at the deep end. Assume a almost zero base level knowledge from your audience, and I think that will make it much better. People actually like to understand the whole thing, even if it's at a lower level. One of the best presentations I ever gave, I was like, oh, I'm just going to keep this as basic as possible. And at the end, they were like, any questions? And like loads of people put their hands up. And I was like, great, I didn't lose any of you and you want more information. That's what the talk should have done. And it did it. And I was so happy. And I was amazed because, you know, I really gave pretty high level, simple stuff. And I think that helped warm the audience up and keep them engaged through the whole presentation. The second thing people are thinking when you're presenting your science could be, I cannot see that graph. Like the amount of people who put just like a figure from a paper, copy and paste that onto their presentation is insane. Like I actually have two forms of graphs. I have my paper graphs, and then I have a simplified version with bigger letters and numbers and type for a PowerPoint presentation. And even on the PowerPoint presentation, I like put massive arrows, or I make it really obvious what I want people to look at. Because when a graph comes up or that something comes up that you want people to really understand, there is no reason why you can't just put a massive circle around it or make it stand out, or, you know, just change the color of the data series that you're actually talking about and you want to point out. So yeah, it's one of those things that people just can't see, or they're confused by the amount of data on the slide, which is another issue. But there's no reason why you can't have a separate version of your data for your presentation, and I recommend that's what you do every time. The third thing that I see all the time is a load of text on the slide, and I get it. People do that because they are worried that they're going to forget what they're going to say. And so they think if it's on the slide, then even if they get a bit confused, they can turn to the slide, read it, boom, you've remembered, everyone moves on. I do that with just like one or two words on a bullet point if I have to. I mainly don't do that. I just rely on the graphs. But this is a problem where the audience is thinking, should I listen or should I read? Because as you flash a slide up, it appears there's loads of text, there's figures, there's information. It's like walking into a new room, right? You know that feeling where you walk into a room and your mind just kind of like forgets why you're there? If you just flash up a new environment with loads of different new information and different colors and explanations, it's going to take a while for them just to adjust to that. And the way you get over that is, first of all, you just have one graph with one bit of information per slide, like one or two bullet points, and you allow them to digest it. Because what you really want them to do when you're presenting is for them to listen to you rather than trying to kind of decipher, well, am I meant to read or am I meant to listen? Because people cannot do both at the same time. So it's a way to really put off your audience if it's like data on a slide and I'm going to talk about it. It's just too much. It's like overload for the audience. And so I recommend that you just keep it simple, and you for every slide you say, okay, I want them to listen to me. And so by listening to me, I need to make this slide as simple to digest as possible. This one is for all of the older academics who may be watching this video, but also it's good for newer PhD students to know about, and that is the rapid succession of information. Like, I've seen it so many times where a professor, a very well-known, sort of well-regarded professor, gets up there and just rapidly goes through slides like there's no tomorrow. My favorite one is when a professor goes, oh, hang on, and flicks through like 10 slides and goes, okay, I want to talk about this one. What? You couldn't have done that a while ago? You couldn't have done that while you were sat waiting, or you're too busy getting drunk in the conference after party. So, you know, it is so important that you just focus on the information that you're actually going to present. Keep it simple, keep it streamlined. Tell one story. That's all you have to do. Keep one story throughout your entire presentation, and don't try to impress people. No one cares about you looking clever. All they care about is making themselves feel clever in terms of the audience understanding what you're saying all the time. And if you can do that, you've successfully communicated your research. You don't want people to leave there going, wow, that person was so clever, they confused me. What you need them to do is to get out there and go, wow, I understood, and I think I understand like the significance of this work. And then, you know, that invites conversation and collaboration. And I found that when I kept my presentations really simple, no matter whether I was a postdoc or I wanted to, you know, impress, or whether I was, you know, talking about something that I thought was really good, as long as I kept it really, really simple, people remained on my side and they remained engaged. So you should do the same. Don't go through too many slides. Don't try to shove up as much information as possible. Don't try to impress the audience, because they only care about themselves and feeling clever. And the way you do that is you make sure that they do actually understand everything you're saying, rather than trying to impress them with, you know, everything you've done. The last thing that I'll talk about is the people that go over time when presenting. So typically when you are presenting your research, you'll know that you'll have a certain amount of time to present, you know, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. The shortest one I've ever done, I think, is 10 minutes. And then it's sort of 10 minutes and 5 minutes for questions. And the longest one I've ever done is, I think, about 35, 40 minutes. And the thing is that people get really, really antsy when it starts creeping into overtime. So you really do have to make sure that your presentation runs on time and that you give enough time for the beginning, the middle, and the end part of your research, as well as talking to the audience through question and answers. Like, really, that's what people care about. Give them enough information that they can ask questions and leave more than enough space at the end. There is a fear among PhD students that no one will ask a question. If there's academics in the audience, you know, seasoned academics and professors, they will just come up with a question. It's fine. It's also okay if no one asks a question, because you can say, if there's no questions, speak to me at lunch, and then there we are. That's all done. Everyone feels comfortable again. But running to time is fantastic, because I found that the moment that anything goes over time, if you've got a weak chair that doesn't cut the presenter off, everyone just gives up. You notice the amount of phones that come out. I've seen people go to sleep. But yeah, that was a pretty extreme example. But people are not forgiving when it comes to running over time. So what I recommend you do is that as you are practicing, you run it and speak it aloud at the pace that you think you're going to give it. You'll always give it a little bit faster because of the adrenaline of speaking in front of a large audience. But also, ultimately, you have to remember that these people are on your side and that they want to understand and that they don't care about you appearing as clever. That's the main thing. Okay, I think I covered that. And yeah, stick to time. Practice until you can't get it wrong. And if you're a nervous speaker, there's no reason you can't take hard copy of notes, but don't rely on them too much, because you need to be looking at the audience, explaining your research clearly. And those are the things that I think people notice the most when you are presenting. So there we have it. There are all of the things that I think are the most important aspects that people judge while they are presenting or watching a scientific presentation. Let me know in the comments what you would add to that. Like, what do you think? Because no one ever really talks about this. I found that it's a thing where afterwards I was like, did anyone understand that? And they're like, oh, no, I didn't. But no one wants to say that because you want to appear clever and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, it is a real issue. And I think scientists are not rewarded properly for becoming good communicators, which means that science is now in a predicament where people just don't really trust, like, or know about what's going on. And that's such a shame. So I hope that will change soon. But in the meantime, communicating within your peers, follow the tips in this video, and I'm sure that you will rock it. If you're new to this channel, please remember to subscribe and hit that bell notification. And if this video is useful, please remember to share it with anyone that you think it could help. I'm going to share everything that I've learned about my PhD and my postdoc journey and and getting grants and everything so that you can succeed for you. And no one else will tell you the things I'm going to tell you because I'm outside of the system and I can share all of the dirty little secrets. All right, I shall see you in the next video.